go into effect at 2 p.m. New York time, which is set at 9 p.m. Israel time. We'll believe it when it happens. It's coming from Hamas, but that's what they've announced. It's now. Okay. I'm now going to call upon the distinguished Speaker of the New York State Assembly, the Honorable Sheldon Silver.
I am speaking on behalf of the members of the Assembly who are here today. Helene Weinstein, Alan Maisel, Micah Kellner, David Weprin, and of course Grace Meng, who will speak on her own later, the Congresswoman-Elect. When a people's existence is continuously threatened, when a people are denied their right to live in peace, I ask you, what are their choices? Must they abandon their homeland and be chased from place to place? Must they embrace annihilation? Never. We would never be chased out of New York. We would never surrender to terrorists. No nation on earth today would accept or be encouraged to accept such choices. There is only one option, and that is to fight. Israel must fight for its people. Israel must fight every day for its right to exist. Hamas has fired more than 1,000 rockets at Israel. They fire their rockets from neighborhoods and schoolyards and mosques, and they use the people of Gaza as pawns and shields. The civilized nations of the world must see Hamas for what it is and acknowledge Israel's right to fight back against these terrorists. As a lifelong supporter of Israel, I stand with my Jewish community. I stand with my colleagues in government. And with firm conviction, I say that fighting is the only passage to peace, then I wholeheartedly support Israel's choice. For now, let us pray for Israel. Let us pray that she will know a lasting peace. If the world truly wants this too, let the nations join together to make it so.
From the Bronx, Rockland County, Congressman Elliot Engel.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I certainly bring greetings from the U.S. Congress, where support for Israel is strong and it's bipartisan, and that's the way it really should be. You know, for years now, Israel has had to endure the shelling of its citizens day in and day out, every morning, every afternoon, and every evening. It's simply untenable, and no nation on earth would permit and allow this kind of terror to reign on their citizens day in and day out. And so Israel has said enough is enough. It's had peace overtures for many, many years, and it's been rejected. And you know why there's no peace in the Middle East? There's no peace because 64 years after the founding of the Jewish state of Israel, the Palestinians and the Arabs in general refused to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. It's very, very simple. All they have to do is say they recognize Israel as the homeland for the Jewish people. Being a Jewish state does not mean that only Jews can live there, but when we had the partition of what was then Palestine in 1947, the UN resolution, they called for the partition of Palestine into an Arab state and into a Jewish state. And shortly thereafter, a few months after, the State of Israel was proclaimed in 1948. And there have been numerous attempts for peace. Yasser Arafat, back in 2000, 2001, was offered the sun, the moon, and the stars, a Palestinian state, 97% of the West Bank, billions and billions of foreign dollars, and he turned it down. And negotiations with then Prime Minister Ehud Olmert back in 2008, everything was offered as well, including part of Jerusalem as the capital of a Palestinian state. Again, rejected by the Palestinians. So what are the Israelis to do? Sit back and allow the reign of terror, allow their people to be shelled? No country would do that. And I'm proud that the United States of America, we have shown that we are Israel's only true ally in the world, and that the United States stands shoulder to shoulder with our friends and brothers and allies in Israel to say that we will not let terrorism win. Iran is right there stroking terrorism, putting money into terrorism, and aiding and abetting terrorism. And this is a more than just a regional conflict. This is a conflict between peace-loving nations and nations that want to build a state on the backs of terror. Well, the Palestinians can have their state with a two-state solution if they simply recognize Israel's right to exist. They will not get their state if they think they can utilize terrorism to build their state. We say that will never happen. And on that I can tell you, Democrats and Republicans agree in Washington, D.C. So I'm here as a representative of New York, as a member of Congress from New York, to say that we in the New York delegation are unified in standing with Israel in this time of need. And here as we are in New York City, which experienced our own terrorism on September 11th, 2001, we understand better than most Americans that terrorism can never be given a free rein, and that we have to stand up and stop terrorism wherever it rears its ugly head. And for the people of Israel, it rears its ugly head day in and day out. So, we support Israel and its right to exist. We support Israel and its right to fight terrorism. We support Israel and its right to say that all of its citizens need to live free without the fear of terror raining down on them.
Thank you. Thank you to JCRC and all the organizations for pulling us together once again. I think we all hope and pray that peace can be found between Israel and Palestine. I thank the President for engaging in this and wish our Secretary of State Hillary Clinton the best in resolving this matter before it gets any worse. It was just a couple of years ago that I had a chance to visit Israel and, among many sites, to spend some time in Sderot and to see the heaps of the remains of rockets that had been launched into that small town, and to see where children have to go to school nearby the closest bunker, where they are taught that they have seconds to run into those bunkers as soon as they hear those sirens go off. And to understand that these young children have to live with that kind of state of mind, even as they're being educated for their future, and indeed the future of Israel and the world. And so, as a father, it's just unimaginable that any kids or any people of any age have to live under those kinds of conditions, which is precisely why Israel not only has the right, but it has the obligation to protect its people against this kind of senseless attack and violence. And that Israel should do what it needs to do, and that it has our support here in New York City to do what it needs to do to protect its people. That is the way that it should be done, and we are we stand fully in support of Israel's right to defend itself. Long live Israel! Yam Israel Chai!
Thank you very much, Susie. And let me first recognize the members of the City Council who are here. We have Councilmember David Greenfield, Councilmember Leroy Comrie, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera, Councilmember Peter Vallone, Councilmember Jessica Lappin, Councilmember Karen Koslowitz, Councilmember Mark Weprin, and I don't think I forgot Councilmember Tish James, thank you, and Councilmember Dan Garodnick and Councilmember Robert Jackson. I would say we have a quorum of the New York City Council here, and that is appropriate because New York is Israel, and Israel is New York. We are bound together as brothers and sisters in our struggle to be free of terror, to be free of being targets, to live in the way we want to live, to practice our lives and our religions in the way that we want to. The issue of Israel becomes complicated at times in the international community, and I simply do not understand that. To me, it is crystal clear. Israel is the only democracy in this region. Israel is the only beacon of true freedom in the Middle East, and she, like every other country in the world, has the obligation to protect her citizens. We hold Israel to a double standard. We ask Israel to do things we would ask no other country in the world to do, and in fact, if we ask them to do it, the international community would criticize whoever asked any other country not to defend herself. As Susie said, when I was on a trip to Israel a few years ago with members of the City Council and Michael Miller, and I want to echo the thanks to Michael and the JCRC, not just for pulling us together today, but keeping us on a daily basis in New York City, focused and united in our support of Israel. But on a trip we took, we were in Sderot. And while we were visiting with the mayor, one of those sirens went off. And we had those 15 seconds you hear about to get to the place in City Hall that was the safest from the rocket that was coming in. It hit a mile away from City Hall, in a community we then went and visited. And if that building was the clinic and the street behind us was someone's home, the rocket hit right there. Thank God it didn't kill anyone, but this is a town that on a regular basis is hit by these rockets. And on far too many days, we aren't as lucky as that day that we were there in that City Hall. And I've been through this experience once, and it will never leave me. Think of what that is like on a regular basis. Think of what that is like for a child. We're here today with a clear message. Israel must protect herself. The international community must rally behind that right of Israel, because without Israel protecting herself, there will never, ever be peace. So on behalf of all New Yorkers, we stand in the strongest solidarity possible with the people of Israel, who have always stood with us in our darkest hours, and we will never, ever walk away from them and their right to define their own lives, to define their own homeland, and to protect themselves every time that they need to.
And by thanking Michael and the JCRC for pulling us together here. You know, I was on a TV program the other day, and the host asked at the end of the program that each of the guests should say, what did we learn this week? What I said was, we learned once again of the hypocrisy of the United Nations, the so-called non-aligned movement, which stands silent as 12,000 rockets fall on Israel, as 500 to 600 rockets were launched at Israel at civilians. Each one of those rocket launches being a war crime because they're launched at civilians. It says nothing. But as soon as Israel exercises its right of self-defense, targets one of the people who were organizing the rocket launches at Israel, then the UN Security Council has an emergency meeting. The non-aligned movement condemns Israel as the aggressor. The president of Egypt condemns Israel as the aggressor. What ultimate hypocrites? What ultimate hypocrisy? A terrorist organization controlling territory may attack a member state of the United Nations, may attack civilians, trying to kill as many civilians as possible, and when self-defense is finally entered into after great restraint, that's aggression. That's aggression. And we hear about the occupation. People forget that Israel withdrew all its troops, withdrew all its citizens for Gaza, and handed over Gaza to the Palestinians. And what did they get in return? A rocket launching pad. A rocket launching pad. Israel has every right to self-defense. We are grateful to the President and to the Congress for providing the resources to help Israel develop the anti-missile system that has saved so many lives. We stand with Israel. We condemn the aggression launched against Israel. We condemn the hypocrisy of many world leaders and certainly of many United Nations leaders who ignore the crimes and the war crimes and the aggression and condemn the victim. And we say, if civilization means anything, it means that you have the right to defend yourself by any means necessary to stop the murderous attacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Nadler. I just want to indicate that before we go on with the program that
I must say, first of all, thanks to Michael once again demonstrating his leadership in JCRC. But I must say, Jerry Nadler summed it up. It was the best summation I've heard of all of the facts in this case that are ignored. And if the comes a time where Jerry decides to leave Congress, he can try cases in Brooklyn anytime for me. Despite the demonstrable evidence of the merits of what has happened, where is the collective outrage? And as Jerry put it very, very bluntly, the UN has never done anything to support the state of Israel. So we have to look elsewhere. And you wonder, in answer to the question, will this ever end? You wonder if people really have any kind of common sense when they ask that question. The other day I was listening to Rabbi Fantastic's Religion on the Line, and he had a simple suggestion. Read the charter of Hamas. And I did. And I ask all of you to read the charter of Hamas, because right in the beginning, quoting the Surat al-Imram in the Quran, it says very clearly, Israel will arise, remain erect, until Islam eliminates it, as it eliminates its predecessors. They are committed to the destruction of Israel. So having them announce a ceasefire is terrific, but it can't end as long as the nations of the world allow Hamas to exist.
Thank you so much, the JCRC. Thank you, UJA Federation of New York. Thank you, all the elected officials. I have such a long list of people that I have to acknowledge, so I think I'll just thank all of you collectively. I just heard the tail end of the very emotional, powerful speech of my dear friend, Reverend de Graaf, Jacques de Graaf. He's been a great friend of ours. Thank you for your words. Thank you for all the clergy that is here to show support. We are moved beyond words as representatives of the State of Israel for this display of solidarity and support. New York and Israel are one in war and in peace. New York is Israel's best friend. There's no other community in the world that is no friendly, accessible, supportive to Israel like this great community of New York. And we are here to say thank you. The people of Israel see the support. They're encouraged by it. They're inspired by it. They need it. And they accept it with love. They accept it with love, and they give back their love to the city of New York. I don't know how many of you know that, but Israelis have a real relationship with the city of New York. Israelis truly mean it when they say, we love New York. And they do. We can see them, by the way, in the streets of New York all the time. They love shopping here. The current chapter of violence between Israelis and Palestinians did not start last week. It started in the summer of the year 2005, when Israel did the unexpected and gave back every square inch of Gaza to the Palestinians, telling them, here, Gaza is all yours. Turn it into a flourishing, booming community. Turn it into an oasis. Unfortunately and regrettably, what the Palestinians did is turned Gaza into one big ammunition dump, into one big ammunition depot, into a launching pad for attacks against innocent Israelis. We know all too well after 9/11 what it means to live with the horror of terrorism here in New York. Imagine that a small town of 25,000 had to endure no less than 8,000 rockets in 7 years. Imagine 8,000 rockets in White Plains. Imagine 8,000 rockets in Staten Island or in Long Island. No government should accept that, let alone a democratically elected government that is responsible for the safety and the security of its own citizens. So at one point you say, enough is enough. And you do what you have to do in order to protect your citizens. 4.5 million Israelis, more than 1/2 of our population, is within range of those missiles. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis did not go to school in the last several days. Tens of thousands of businesses, small, medium, and large, did not operate. Many businesses went under. The damage to Israel's economy can be estimated in the billions. So at one point you say, enough is enough. And you do what you have to do in order to protect your own, while you make sure you do everything that is humanly possible to minimize loss on the other side in terms of non-involved civilians. And I want you to know that the Israeli cabinet instructed the Israeli Defense Forces to make sure that we bring to the minimum collateral damage and loss of life among non-involved Palestinian civilians. So in conclusion, I want you to know that we are moved by this display of support. I'm here to express my appreciation and the appreciation of the Israeli government to all the great friends that we have here, elected officials, spiritual leaders of their communities, and of course the leadership of the greatest Jewish community in the world, the Jewish community of New York. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Consul General Aharoni, for your inspiring remarks. Now my pleasure to call upon the Public
General Counsel for his powerful, powerful words. It's this simple. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel is our closest ally. This is not even gray, it is abundantly clear. I've been to Sderot, I've been to places in Israel that have had rockets raining down on them for years, and have had to live an unacceptable life. They've had to live with the fear that at any moment their homes, their schools, their businesses could be attacked. I went to the Child Play Center in Sderot, which is literally built as a bomb-proof building because it was the only way that children in that community in southern Israel could know that they'd be safe during daytime hours and could live any modicum of a normal life. No nation would put up with that. No nation should have to put up with that. So Israel will do what it must do to defend itself. We will stand with Israel every step of the way, and we hope and pray that somehow peace can be regained here at this moment. But the only way that'll happen is if we stand in total solidarity with Israel, and Hamas understands that we will be shoulder to shoulder every step of the way. Thank you.